dentist, even with dental care,
You need to check into the new plans and stuff. Yeah, well, basic cleaning exam x-rays are generally not expensive. Usually even basic dental coverage will cover that bit.
Yeah. I need to look into it. I do. And I
Yeah,
do have it, so I need to actually use it if I'm paying money for it. So,
totally.
yeah.
I mean, I can't get Rob to go. It drives me nuts. And he's not, he doesn't go for so long that he has to go. And it does end up costing money, and it shouldn't, to have him like sedated for the tartar buildup to be off his teeth. I'm like, if you just got him cleaned every 6 months, this wouldn't happen.
Can you pronounce the first name for me? I think the last name is Lord. Is that how it's pronounced, the last name of my person I'm quoting?
Here's my notes. Boop, doop, doo. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know the first one. I would assume it would be Ord. Um,
Ord.
Google can help us with that,
Uh,
you know.
well, I'm using my iPad and I've still a little
Gotcha. Let me.
funky when it comes to using it properly.
Hmm. Oh, here we go.
We are looking at how to pronounce the name of American writer, feminist, womanist, librarian, and civil rights activist. We are looking at how to pronounce the name Audre Lorde.
Okay, so it's
Audre Lorde.
O
All right.
O Audrey. Yeah,
Audrey.
Audrey.
Okay. Audrey.
Audre Lorde. Audre
Audrey.
Lorde.
Just Audrey. Like
Audrey.
O. AU is O, like you would in French. It would be O instead of
Uh,
ow, like in American. So Audrey.
Au-
Like
Audrey.
pretend there's a
Okay.
big O there
Okay.
instead of an AU. Audrey Lorde.
Audrey Lorde. Okay. Audrey.
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 Audrey. Yeah. I'm going to mess it up.
I made you
I'm going.
something. I made you something.
What'd you make?
Me. What's up, Doc?
That's great. I'm going to introduce a new segment to the show starting next week. It's going to be a check-in portion because we're talking about burnout. I think it's good for us to do a little check-in portion to make sure that we're not having burnout. And I'm thinking about doing the Monty Python bit of, and now for something completely different,
Sure.
where we just not talk about politics for a couple of moments and we check in with each other and kind of do what you with the Geek Girls do. And it's like,
Yeah.
what are you doing to unwind? What are you doing to remove yourself from your the politics kind of thing. I haven't figured out a name yet. I'm working on that, but we'll have that by next week. And next week we're going to be talking, because I've seen so much of it in the past 2 weeks, of how there's this like thread that runs through um, all of the right wing media of like, you saw where like everybody all of a sudden just jumped on this all at once together about how Biden was going to take away your hamburgers, and it just like went wildfire. And I'm like, we really need to talk about deprogramming and about how it's being used and how programming and that kind of stuff's being used. We really need to do that show. So that's going to be next week's show.
Okay, have you watched the Q documentary?
I am going to sit down and watch it this week.
Absolutely watch that because that has a lot of insight into just gaming. I mean, the people that did that were gaming that kind of
Mm-hmm.
manipulation of
Right.
people. And it worked, and there are reasons. Yeah, I heard briefly about the meat thing today. Apparently, Fox put up this graphic about how he was banning meat, and they've apologized. They took 3 days to apologize for a misleading graphic. But meanwhile, we live in a meme world, so I
Right.
think self-care is something we want to build into naming that segment.
Okay, we can definitely do that.
Like,
You know,
let's take a second for self-care or something. I don't
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah,
Or what did you do?
we,
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
yeah.
Live
Okay.
now.
All right.
Posting.
Ready when you are.
I was posting to the Facebook.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
nice.
I
We can
post.
hear Rob packing his cigarettes.
Oh, okay.
I need an on-air sign. And I need to program it so it sends alerts to all of their devices. One of my goals in life. Okay, where's the thing?
Devil is amongst us. Stay back, boy. This calls for divine intervention. I kick ass for the Lord.
Caring for myself is not self-indulgence. It's self-preservation. And this is an act of political warfare. Andre Lord.
Sometimes it's easy to lose faith in people, and sometimes one act of kindness is all it takes to give you hope again. Rhonda Abel Fattah. Let's talk about burnout and hitting that wall.
Welcome to Heresy and Hearsay, a podcast to reclaim faith in the context of political discussion. I'm Reverend Barney, and you can follow me at Seth Roth II and on Twitter, and you can follow the show on Twitter and at Heresy, and just look for Heresy and Hearsay. Heresy and Hearsay has a Patreon, the site, and you just look for that site at patreon.com/heresy and hearsay, where you can visit and help support the show. Just $2 a month goes a long way to make this humble show. And the person helping me remind me why we keep fighting this humble fight is September.
Hi, I'm September, or 9 of 12, and you can follow me on Twitch or Twitter at 9 of 12. That's NINEOF12. I'm also co-host of the Geek Grills podcast. Welcome to our new Twitch channel for Heresy and Hearsay. You can contribute with bits here, or subscribe for free if you have Amazon Prime, or subscribe on your own if you love us that much. You can follow this show on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and any podcast catcher has it. Just look for Heresy and Hearsay. Heck, the other day I was testing It's Fun to be in my kitchen with my Echo Dot and say, "Hey Alexa, play my podcasts." And so that's pretty nifty too. So please like, share, follow, subscribe, whatever is appropriate where you're listening, and give us a review because that really helps others find us. We also have a website, and you can listen there to all of our past shows, as well as find bios about each of us. That's at heresyandhearsay.com.
So today, what started this was I was having a bit of a crisis of faith and a bit of burnout. There was just so much. It was what kind of happened was the trial of Chauvin was happening, and then just a few miles down the road there was the incident of the shooting that happened, of the other unarmed black man, and I can't remember his name, and I am so sorry. I am very bad right now about remembering anything, and please, listeners, forgive me about that. But I was just like, we're having this trial of this man, and and then this happens while this trial is going on, and it was just like punch in the gut and everything else.
Yeah, it was a lot at once because there was that 16-year-old girl, like while the verdict was being announced, and then we had that shooting in North Carolina. That's Andrew Brown,
Right.
which, oh my goodness,
That is some shady, because they're not letting the family or anybody see that video. That's some shady stuff going on down there.
the family has, I believe, as of today, they were shown 20 seconds of the video, which, I mean, it's not enough. The judge should have ordered a week ago for to all be released. But what they did release, he had his hands on the wheel and was shot in the back of the head. So I don't know what else is on the tape, but do we really need any more? Anyway, it was all very triggering to want to have some relief that things were changing, and then all of this is just piled on top of it.
Right. And so you just, you think things, and I'm not saying the Chauvin trial was going to be like, and there were these people who's like, oh, well, justice has been done. And I was not thinking that at all. Even with the Chauvin trial, what I was hoping was this was going to be a small step into where not justice was done, but that there was, that there was progress, that there was, this person was being held accountable for this, horrible act. If you just, and if, watch the video, because they released and they showed all of the videotape, not just the 9 minutes, but they showed all of it. He had been handcuffed. He had been put in the car. He had been taken out of the car again. It was just like, honestly, this could have been very easily, they could have shifted this to almost murder one with some of, some people were like saying, this is very pushing murder one because of the fact of some of the things. I'm not saying it is, but I'm saying that there was so much that there was not a need for him to even be put back down on the ground. He had already been put in the car and everything else, and they took him back out of the car again.
Everybody, this is not what we're talking about. We don't want to dive into this right now, Bernie.
I'm sorry.
You get all upset, anyway, riled up, and burn out over it again. But I will say that murder one is premeditation, so that's another thing to prove entirely. All right.
Sorry. See, and that's,
you've been burning out, that's why, and I know that, and we've had to cancel shows.
Yes. So.
And you've had to take social media breaks or try, which has been a challenge. And I know a lot of people out there have been facing a lot of the same things, not only from political burnout, but the social shift during the whole pandemic. I mean, people have paid more attention to politics. More people voting had a lot to do with that. I was listening to Jury talk about that today. Like, oh, well, people got so interested in politics because they were all stuck home. Right? But look at the kind of scrolling and online-only communication shifts, and a different kind, like Zoom fatigue, right? It's like a whole different kind of burnout, and a whole lot more people burning out at the same time because we've been all stuck at home.
Right, and there's a reason why it's called doom scrolling. There is definitely a reason why it's called that. And thank you for pulling me back, because that's the thing is that you get so wrapped up into it and it just escalates and you go down that rabbit hole. And it just, I used to enjoy going down rabbit holes on like Wikipedia, finding out new information about stuff, but it's gotten to the point where it's just been so detrimental as far as like, because it's not new information, it's hurtful. I'm not going to talk about it, but I'm going, it's like one of the things I had mentioned to you was about the representative in Florida and all the stuff going on with that representative and how that had just been infuriating me. And you're like, we can mention it, but it's not something that's actionable. That's not what the show is about. And you had to like remind me what the show is about. The show is about actionable thing.
And I mean, venting is valuable.
Right.
But that there's a place, there's a format, and that's not what we're doing here.
Right.
That would be a different show, but it doesn't fit the mission. And the mission could be very good for your mental health because it feels like it's taking the power you have and doing something with it, instead of, screaming into the wind. And it's hard to have a positive focus. And I'm really good at not doom scrolling. I can distract myself pretty quickly, but sometimes it's hard to not respond to people being awful.
Yeah. And you and I see so much because I live alone. I don't have a family, so I don't have as many distractions. I don't watch a lot of scripted television or anything like that. It's I've kind of been burned out on scripted TV for the most part. I did watch like, Falcon and Winter Soldier and stuff like that because it was interesting. But for the most part, I don't watch a lot of scripted television or anything. So I tend to get bogged down in that, and I need to step away from that and figure out something and step away from that kind of stuff. But
It's funny because, like you mentioned, it's funny you mentioned Falcon Winter Soldier, because for me that was a very hopeful, rejuvenating way to watch fiction. But it was fiction, and like our comics and our nerdy stuff does, sometimes it addressed political stuff. Like I saw this great meme about it. Like, hey, give me the money to make this this Falcon Winter Soldier thing. Oh, as long as you're not too political. And then they go on to address like the entire Black America plight. And I was watching at the beginning. I was stressed out. I was like, they're taking it away. I was gonna freak out because I remember going to see, when Captain passed the shield on to Sam, and there was leaving the theater, and this like black man in the theater just going, yes, Captain America's black, and he was like so excited, and I was so excited for him. Like, somebody was so excited about being represented that he shouted out loud leaving the theater. And
right.
when this series started, I was like, oh hell no, oh they better not. And instead they dug into that, and they owned that whole like story of how African Americans have been treated in this country and wove it in. And then he
Right.
claimed his, right, because he finally felt worthy, and about him not feeling worthy and why he wouldn't. And oh my God, it was so social justice wise good.
that fifth episode was so powerful with Bucky and Sam having that conversation. Is like, I'm sorry, and Bucky saying, I'm sorry, I didn't understand. Steve didn't understand. Steve was like this representation. He was above, he didn't see that. He didn't see the what was going on, or I
Like, he
don't
knew
want to say
right
that.
and wrong, but he didn't have any way of experiencing or understanding his own privilege.
Right.
And like they all but said that out loud, and for me, that was like a wonderful oasis of recreation, but with all the stuff with the shootings and right around, the verdict, the trial, and everything being in turmoil, it was like a good balance of escapism, but also feeling like, okay, the
Eh,
the arc is still bending toward justice because people are enjoying this and owning
Right.
their shit.
And I think, and I also think that the speech that Sam gave, towards this to the leaders, and saying, hey, who are making these decisions? And he was basically saying to people, is like, hey, check your privilege. These, you're making decisions for people that you don't understand. Maybe you should check your privilege a little, is basically what he was saying in a nutshell. And it was just so powerful. And and I loved it. And a lot of people, yeah, and I'll say this, a lot of people on the internet didn't understand it, as they were upset that there was politics in their comic books. I'm like, politics has been in the Marvel Cinematic Universe from the beginning. And if you didn't understand that from the beginning, then it's like,
Well, it
I'm
was
sorry.
written into the comics before that. And
Yeah.
you need better filters. And if you want me to log in as you and get rid of some fucking people, we can do that, because I don't see any people saying shit that stupid anymore. The most toxic group I ever even see stuff from is the 3D printers group. You wouldn't believe these people, but you
No,
don't
these
have to.
these are people that are not retweeting, but capturing things. That these are people I'm following. They're more bringing awareness of it, and I just need to ignore it and just skip those tweets for a while. That's what I need to do.
I mean, that
Is I just
anyone is still saying keep your politics out of my comics is just a level of ignorance we don't even have to deal with. It's
yeah.
been addressed over and over and over. Anyone who still has that complaint isn't ever going to listen. So
No.
bye.
No. Yeah. That's true.
I found this second article you posted about burnout from Psychology Today very interesting, because it addresses activists in particular
Right.
burning out and what can be done about that. What
Yeah,
did you get out of that article?
the biggest thing, let me pull it up here because I'm all right. So for our fans in the world, I'm using my iPad and I'm trying to having to pull it up. So open link. There we go. Yeah, open in Chrome. So because my laptop is kind of dying. So I'm trying to do things so where you can still hear me, but I also do this. One of the things is that the it talks about the what you feel and what happens when you're trying to make the changes, and it's like the backlash and everything else, the and how it and how you can take that personal, or how it affects you when you're making change. There is always going to be there's always going to be people pushing back and everything else, and the differences between making a change in small ways versus like structural changes, and how and that's the big thing that was I wanted to get into is about how when you're making structural changes, how you have to understand that wall is thick and it's hard and it takes time, and sometimes people are still building that wall while you're trying to tear it down, and so you feel like you're not getting anywhere. And sometimes it's okay to take a step back and see where the progress has been. And I think that's the big point of this. And we have some points that me and September have written down, but I think that's what they're trying to say is that we get so caught up in the macro, and then the I'm sorry, the
The
MI,
machinations.
the MIRCO, that we forget about the macro, the larger point, that
Okay.
we see the trees, but we forget that there's this forest that we've cut down half of it, or that we're so focused on this one brick that we forget about all the other bricks that we've already knocked down.
Okay. Well,
You know,
this article in particular, before we get into and I will post all the articles in. I'll put them in the chat, and I'll put them on our webpage and our Patreon and everything for people to see. But I found this one particularly poignant for activists, being that I've worked in that field, and some very specific points hit home for me. And that they did put number one, like the emotional dispositional causes of activist burnout. Because when you are a true believer, and you're like, I don't need to get paid for a job. Like, my husband makes enough money to support our household. So I go in as a true believer. That, and I couldn't in good conscience work for a candidate I didn't believe in. So when I'm working in this stuff, or even volunteering and putting in a ridiculous amount of hours, you start to feel personally responsible for the cause, and personally, it's you take it personally, and it's hard not to, because this is what you believe in, this is what you're living your whole life around. I mean, I ran into somebody I haven't seen in a long time the other day. We were so happy to see each other and so excited. He was in from out of town because he moved away, and then we got into politics, and I got so upset, and I don't think I was very nice, because it's my own burnout. Like, I can't listen anymore to things about how people are just too lazy to work, type stuff, and
right,
that we just couldn't agree on. But anyway, you start to feel that you have this relationship with racial justice. It's not just something you believe in, and you
hmm
start to feel personally responsible. Um, then the whole um, things going on in the movement and structural things with causes and with different organizations that are a problem. And it's one of the reasons I actually just applied for a job with the Campaign Workers Guild.
okay,
I'm hoping to work to unionize more campaign workers, because that was a huge change I've seen in the system, and it needs to move forward and continue, because as hypocritical as it is, even the Democrats, all political organizations, have been basically paying shit wages and burnout for burnout hours to young people for years and years, as if it's like an entry position because we're going to get you into the administration later. That's always been a thing. And
Right.
this is a very course correcting measure that I was glad to be a part of, and I hope to help move forward. So structural things like that are another actionable thing we can work toward and support. And there was the whole how people treat each other, because everybody is getting burned out. You get toward the end of the election, the hours are bad, and you don't feel like you're gonna win, and everyone is stressed out. And there's something that the kids I worked with in this last campaign introduced me to that I had never seen. I understand it's a common business practice in a lot of places, but I had never seen it, and it's called a sustainability question.
Okay.
And it's funny because before we started the show today, folks, Barney brought up wanting to do this kind of thing in our show. As a segment, like a little catch up with each other. How are you taking care of yourself to help us prevent burnout, talking about these serious topics all the time? And a sustainability question was something that, like, the supervisors in the little group would have our meeting every morning, like, here's what we're going to do today, here's when the call time is, here's that. And then, like, usually at the end of the day, someone would come up with a sustainability question. It's like, okay, so what is your favorite topping on a hot dog? And then you do the round robin and everybody around the table, and whatever ridiculous question it is, but not to do with work, not to do with the topic, not to do with the task on hand, but everyone learns a little bit about each other, maybe has a laugh. And it was amazingly diffusing, and I didn't really understand it at first. And it's funny because one of the young people was like, I thought you would think we're so stupid doing that. I'm like, no, why would you think that? It's like, well, because, you're old school politics. I'm like, no, but I think that's brilliant. Everyone should do that. We need that diffuse. We need to recognize each other as people in a work environment.
Right. Yeah, because I think that's important to I think that is a good idea to understand is that we, I'm a true believer that, the reason I wanted to do this is, this is my faith, and I see my faith being used in a hateful way. And and I get so angry and so passionate about seeing people use this, people people using, trying to use hateful language to, say that gay people shouldn't be, or that trans people shouldn't exist, or whatever. And it just makes me angry because this is not, what Jesus has taught us. And so, so I get, you are at that point, I'm fully invested into this situation. When that happens and it is changing minds is very hard, especially in the evangelical. I understand that, right now we have a very small audience, and I get that. But my hope is that with my small audience, one person hears one of our episodes, has someone that they know that they can say, hey, listen to this, maybe you should listen to this, and be like, and change one person. And that's all that matters. Is if that one person changes, and that one person realizes that their life, that people have told them the wrong answer about how their Christianity, how their faith has been used for hateful means when it shouldn't be, then I think this show is a success. No matter how many episodes we've done, and this is 66th episode, how many shows we've done, if we've made one person realize that their faith has been used in a hateful way, and that, they come to that realization, I think this is a successful show. I would like to reach, many more people, don't get me wrong, but it's not about my reach, it's about the value. And I sometimes lose track of that. because I see so many people falling for the same hateful rhetoric over and over again. And it just makes me angry. It's like, how can you read the same text I read and come up with such a different view? I that's what I don't understand. That's what makes me angry. And that's when I start to lose faith or lose my perspective, and I start, then I step out, and I become man shouts at cloud. And I, that's, and I'm sure Cloud Strife would not appreciate that. He's just trying to, get, trying to save the world from the meteorite. And he doesn't appreciate an old man yelling at him. That's for those people who got that joke, and those that did, I'm sorry. But it's like, you don't need, an old, there are plenty of middle-aged white men on the internet yelling at clouds. What we need is more people coming up with action plans to help people. And I think
Do I need to change our background image?
Do we have clouds?
Yeah, we have a blue sky with clouds.
No, that's fine. We're not shouting at them, so it's okay. This is us yelling at
clouds. We're floating across in it.
Maybe those pictures I sent you earlier today, we could incorporate those instead, or the nice flowers that we did.
Yeah,
that was very lovely. But
I like my flowers black, like my soul.
No, that was my teen years. Thanks. That was during my whole crow.
My sister sent me a box of like Midnight Beauty gladiolus bulbs today. Yes.
Ooh, I bet those are beautiful.
More black flowers.
But we've both of us are veterans in the political field. I started, it's funny because he actually came up this week because of Tucker Carlson. Jesse Helms got me involved in politics as far as in my state. And it's just funny that, Tucker Carlson's yearbook photo came up with him being part of the Dan White Society, which, for those who don't know, he was the man who killed Harvey Milk. I think Harvey was his first name, who was the first openly gay politician in San Francisco. And another man, he was part of the Dan White Society, which was the gentleman who killed those two individuals, and also part of the Jesse Helms Society, according to Tucker Carlson's yearbook. And Jesse Helms was someone who who basically put everything into perspective for me. So, and this was when I was 18, 19, and that's when I worked for my first political action committee, was back then. So, it's just kind of funny how that all comes back around when you see that name and you go, oh, and when I saw that name, there was just this red haze of rage that came over me, and I had to stop for a second. It's like, he is no longer in politics, and I can do things again, and I can make
had a much better political reminder this week, and it was because somebody died. So, geez, dude, calm down. Like, Walter Mondale died, and he was like a very progressive politician. Yes. And then I took that cool cookbook I found with his wife's recipes and shit in it, and I made this delicious pumpkin bread, and I had to go find dates and chop them up, and I was so happy, and I did that like in his honor and everything, and then the dog ate it.
How did the dog
didn't even kill it, because I put it away and I put it up, and then I don't know if one of the kids moved it down onto the counter where the dog could reach it when I went out downtown, but I went to grab it the next day to share with people at the brewery, and the dog had eaten it. I got to try one slice that I tested to make sure it was good before sharing with people.
Well, at least none of the. I don't think none of the ingredients hurts dogs, so you're
No,
okay on
but geez.
that. I know
It was a very short-lived honoring of Mr. Mandela.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so at least you had a good reminder, and I had the other reminders, like
But you could see there is an attitude thing about it. You're like, well, at least he's not in politics anymore. That's done.
That's true. It's true, but it was a stark reminder of why I initially got into politics. And I wished I had a happier reason of why I got into politics, but it was because of my absolute despising of this very bigoted, he was just anti-gay, homophobic, racist individual, and he was just horrible. And you should look back at some of the stuff. Ugh, anyways, not getting into that. Not getting into that because that's not what we're doing today.
No.
we are being
How to
good
not
today.
burn out.
How not to burn out, and how to and again, it's one of those things where it is a work in progress for me because of the fact that I get so passionate, I get so angry, and I need to learn some more techniques. And that's what one of the things I would also say before we read off our stuff. And I did, we did post it. We're posting an article from Psychology Today. I will say this, and I'm sure that September will back me up 100%. Especially if you're deep in to any type of activism or political work or whatever, it behooves you, if you can do this, to definitely have mental health therapy. Make sure that you're checking in with those mental professionals so that you are on a good, because we're not professionals. Neither one of us have any training in this. I'm a theologian,
I
and everything.
do. Holy
Okay.
shit, I went to campaign school. I have a diploma. Do you need to see my diploma, everybody? I can show you. It's right here.
You have a diploma. Okay.
To fucking Yale. Thanks. But anyway.
So, but what I'm saying is that, definitely, make sure that you're you're using our mental health professionals. That is one of the things I was so grateful about the ACA is that was included in the ACA, is that mental health was part of that, and that we could go and see mental health professionals and make sure we could, get that all handled. I think that is extremely important. So
I had therapy today.
I had therapy today too. Yes. And I mainly talked about politics.
And I just texted my husband. I said, I think after this, and I'm not sure if I want to go to Azeroth or not, because I'm having second therapy.
I talk when I go to therapy. I mainly talk about politics, and my therapist, who is not very political, she learns a lot about politics through me. So it's like, it's like, and why does that make you? And why does that make you angry? And it's like, let me tell you. So it's like,
Dude.
yeah.
Boy, no, I don't talk about politics to my therapist at all. I don't. Not because I'm not involved. It is very much part of me, but I talk about me and what I'm going through and my relationships with people and stuff.
Well, the reason I go to therapy is
it comes up with me is, the difference in my actual life and around when I'm working, when I'm not working, type relationship stuff. So
we're working through my anger issues. So that's what we're working through. So. I don't know why people think I'm angry. I am not an angry person at all.
Well, maybe you have to quit politics and figure out where that anger is really coming from.
Oh, I'm sure I know where it's coming from, and we're going to actually delve into my high school years next week, so
Oh,
that'll
that'll
be
be
fun.
fun.
I don't want to do
Alright.
that at all, but okay. So, but yes, but definitely that is one of the things. We are not professionals, but we are going to give some of things that we have done throughout our lives to help, but also make sure that you definitely seek professional help when you need it so that you have that as well.
Oh, you meant mental health care professionals. Okay.
Yes,
I thought you were talking
not
about like being professionals in politics, and because we were talking about the jobs that are stressing us out. But
no, I'm talking about, mental health
well, no, not mental
therapists.
health. I'm not a therapist. I only studied that for a short period of time.
Yes. No, neither one of us, that's what I meant, is neither one of us
Okay,
are therapists.
gotcha.
All right, so I'm going to go with my list first. One of the things that, and I'd already mentioned this, but one of the number one, step back and look at the walls that have already come down. One of the things that both me and September can point to is gay marriage, and how, and honestly, this came a lot quicker than I think either one of us expected it to. I figured this would be a much longer fight. At least I did. But that wall came down very, very quick as far as gay rights and everything is concerned. That gay marriage situation. But it came down. And you have to look at those kind of walls, where we started, you know, and that acceptance of gay marriage and how we are seeing more gay representation, and how there's a lot of work still to be done, especially in the bisexual and trans community, and how that work needs to, that's our new walls right now, and those walls are being fought, you know. But for example, that everybody was concerned about that Florida bill that didn't get through the Senate. It did not pass, and the Arkansas bill didn't go through because the governor didn't sign it. So, baby step, there is minor hopes and those kind of things, but we have to keep fighting. We have to keep these things moving forward. You have to keep, these kind of conversations happening, and, making sure equal rights are passed. There are bills in the House and the Senate to be equal rights bills for trans people, for people of, so that they can have equal rights. And we need to make sure that they do that. So, but you have to look at the walls that have come down and understand that a lot of work has already happened. And that sometimes when your head is against the wall right now, sometimes you forget of how many walls you've already come through. So I think that's important to understand.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, take a break. Sometimes it's okay to say, look, I need a month, 6 months off. I need to back away. I need to take a step back, especially after a campaign season. I know everybody likes to gear back up and everything else, but take time away, especially when it's slowed down a little bit. Though I understand what's happened, like in Georgia and stuff like that, that just immediately like, well, we need to get back in the fight. But it's okay. Say, look, I'm exhausted mentally, physically, emotionally. I need to step away and do that. Find things you enjoy. If you can't take that month off, but you can take a couple of days off, whatever, find time for yourself and do something. Turn off any media that you can. I know it's very hard in our always connected lives. I would suggest, if you're able, that if you're into like video games, for example, find a gaming system that you don't have to always be online. Disconnect from being online if you can do that, and play video games that way.
Why?
because of media, that way it's just that way you're disconnected from being online. It's not a temptation. That's
Okay.
the only reason.
All right. I mean, this is very specific to you, so.
Right. I'm being very specific to me.
Okay. It might be helpful for a lot of people, yes.
Remember that if you don't feel like you're making a change, you are. Okay? Because one drop of water is just a drop of water. But that one drop of water will eventually, make a difference, because it only takes one drop of water to meet another drop of water, and so on, until you get a stream and then eventually an ocean. So just understand that what you're doing, it may not seem like you're doing a lot. And that's, again, I'm talking about myself, but again, that is.
Well, another thing the drop of water analogy is good for is ripples, which is what you're trying
Right.
to do with the show.
But it does make a difference. You are making a difference. You may not see it immediately, but you are making a difference. You just have to understand that you may not see those immediate effects. So take stock in that sometimes it takes a while. As a quote from Doctor Who says, water always wins. It just takes time. And finally, never be too hard on yourself. Be forgiving of yourself and others. We're human. We make mistakes. Especially of your past. Where I am now is not who I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever. I've grown. Prime example of that is when Obama was running for president. Initially, he did not believe in gay marriage. He believed in civil unions, but he evolved his beliefs as he, became president and everything. I'm just using
No,
that.
it's a great case. It's a great case. And I can't help but laugh. In my head, if I could draw, I would have political cartoons, and I would have done one at that time of him having that light bulb moment when talking to actual gay couples of going, I was doing separate but equal. Holy shit. I did what? And changing his mind.
Yeah. And it's one of those things is when I was younger, at first I was like, gay thing is wrong, and then it was like gay is a choice, and it was like, whatever, just what, and to the point where I am today, where I have evolved over time as I've learned more and as I've understood more. And some people are in a different part of the road than you have been on, and you're still on a different part of the road than other people are on. So don't be too hard on yourself, and don't be too hard on other people who are maybe further back than you are. If they are on the path that you are on, they're just further back, let them grow. Help them, but don't be too hard on them. But also don't be too hard on yourself for seeing yourself in that point. It was like, God, I was like that? How horrible of a human being was I? You weren't. We grow. We grow and we learn and we change. So don't be too hard on yourself when you grow. Because that's the point of life.
Reaction to that of feeling personally, when you can see yourself in someone like that, you feel personally responsible to educate them, and that's not your job. And it's hard to let go of, and forgive yourself if you do let go of that responsibility sometimes. So
it's okay to help. It's okay if they ask for help, but you have to let them find that road themselves. They have to take that path just like you took that path, because each person on that road has to come to those aha moments on their own. If it's forced, they may lose their way. That's the other thing. I never had someone just shove me. You can't shove somebody down that road. They have to come to those moments organically for them to truly grow and to be a better person. That's the other thing that I have discovered. You can't force somebody. As much as I would love to grab every, Christian evangelical and shake them as like, what are you thinking? That's not going to help. They have to have those aha moments on their own. And all I can do is be like, hey, maybe you should rethink this situation, and be like a kernel or be like a seed and let that seed naturally grow. And that's something I have to work on.
Yeah,
so that is my thing.
Epiphanies aren't something that can be forced because they come
Right.
from within. But all you can do, and what you can do, is you can open a door and you can shine a light.
Mm-hmm.
But they have to put their feet on the path. So,
Correct.
something I know all too well. So, is it my turn?
It is your
For
turn.
my little list. My list was more like I thought we were already talking about all the way through your list, like when we were just discussing it before. Because I kind of wrote notes, not so much as a script as for I just want to touch on these points. So we'll see what's left.
Okay.
Taking a step back, and we've mentioned that, with Barney, it's disconnecting from the media and the temptation of media because he gets drawn down into a rabbit hole. For me, I had a very a much more in real life stepping back to reassess myself and find my happiness. I had been so immersed in politics. I don't know, it was about 5 years ago. I mean, up to my eyeballs. I had so many elected and appointed positions. And I started finding that even I lost myself in it. I didn't have anything else. All my friends I talked to were people I met through politics, and it's all we ever talked about. And then even I'd go downtown to have a beer, and people knew I was involved, so that they would come up and talk to me. Hey, where do I go? Where do I vote? How do I do this? Did you hear about? It was the only thing anyone ever talked to me about, and it started to hurt me. Like, I'm more things. Like I just found a new game. I'm reading a book. I'm raising children. I was involved in whatever, and I was becoming part of these online hangout with Diamond Club and Frog Pants people online and stuff. And those people had no idea I was involved in politics. So I had those notes of appreciation of me being a person and being interested in creative endeavors. And I was like learning to sew. Went and took a class and everything, and then, but no one in my real life saw anything but she's that political person. And they would bring people over to me at the bar to introduce them. Oh, hey, they had a question about politics. I told them you'd know. So I had lost myself in it. It was a great replacement for a social life when my kids were little and I had very little choice to go anywhere and do anything else. That it was kind of like it's important and it's business and it's changing the world for them. So I let myself take the time to do it. But I had to pull back from that. And so I, started doing Geek Grills, and that really helped me. It fed my soul. It was me doing me thing, and people were like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm doing this thing, and I'm talking about things I love, and I'm making stuff. And after a short time on Geek Grills, withdrew from every single one of my elected positions. And I had to look at, like Bernie said, take stock of what had been accomplished. I mean, I helped form the first LGBTQ caucus in North Carolina Democratic Party. We elected Obama. We re-elected Obama when I was working in politics in those years. There were changes to the state executive committee plan of organization that I was part of enacting, and starting other caucuses and helping write their bylaws. And I don't have to be personally responsible just because there's always more work to do and there's never enough people to do it. But I needed to take care of myself, and I didn't feel like, why should anyone listen to me? Because I'm spouting back stuff I know. I had to care about my life and not feel so responsible for everyone else knowing everything constantly. And even going back to work for Biden-Harris this election, I went downtown one night and I took somebody mask and I took someone voter registration forms with BLM, and then somebody came up to me and started talking politics to me, and I just said no. I said, what? I'm like, I'm not talking. This was like the day after the election, I think.
Right.
And a local came up to me and wanted to talk about it. And I just said no. And he's no, you don't understand. I worked like 70 hours last week. I don't want to talk about politics here now. I just no. And he walked away and, went and talked to other people. And then, about an hour later, I was like, hey, dude, I'm sorry if I was short, but you have to understand.
Right.
And he's like, it's okay. I do. You're obviously burnt out. I respect everything you've done, and that's why I come to you with that stuff. But I'm not entitled to just come at you with stuff. And that was wonderful. And
Right.
that's what I need. And that's what, other people need to understand. If you come up on anybody talking about something they're uncomfortable with, not everyone can say no. And it took me like 20 years to get to where I say, no, I'm not going to talk about politics with you because I don't owe you these answers because I educated myself.
Right.
Which is the position I had put myself in, where I was respected and trusted as an authority on such matters. But I need to be able to say no and be something else. So you also sharing your joy, for me, is one of the best things I have going for self-care.
Mm-hmm.
All boats rise with the tide. This is my another pro-union message for today. But I really believe that about our society.
Mm-hmm.
And so, although some people might think it sounds like placing my worth in others' reactions. And I suppose to some extent it's there, but I am more careful about it than that. Because I do things anonymously. Just something I know someone needs, and I'll drop it off at their door.
Right.
And leave. Or make sure you reach out and just give someone words of encouragement.
Right.
A struggling artist, go to their Patreon and leave a comment or put a little like on one of their posts. You would be amazed, because people like us who are creators, that you're watching them every day on YouTube, but they don't get any feedback that anyone's watching. It can be incredibly disheartening. And to me, sharing that joy, it's a feedback loop. And I try to that random act of kindness, or just I'll cook way too much of something and go drop it off at people's houses if I have to.
Right.
And that's self-care for me, because I did a twofer with the hour and a half that I made sure I had in the day, and I had a spoon to do something with, and that I was also able to share it instead of just sit in a corner with a book.
Mm-hmm.
Is a healing moment for me. And like I said about carving out that time, I got autoimmune disease. I just had fibro added to my diagnoses. Yay. And so a lot of times you can only do one thing.
Right.
It might be get out of bed. It might be a shower. I'm in pain pretty much all the time. So sometimes a very stressful thing, and it makes me hit a wall where things like anxiety and depression I become very vulnerable to, and stop accomplishing anything because your to-do list gets so long because you couldn't do the 5 things need to be done today, and you couldn't do them all, and so the next day it's just 10 things.
Right.
I had to stop that approach, and I very consciously, I needed a list. Works for me. A lot of people, there's apps and all different methods people try. There's gamifying ways to do it, but for me, a physical list of, okay, here's all the things I want to get done, and then I can, in order of importance, I absolutely need to take Fletcher to go get his vaccination tomorrow.
Right.
But if I run out of spoons, there's a contingency plan for the rest of it. I mean, I'd also like to finish the pouch. I have the material cut out for you. I need to restock at the Coffee Lodge because I went there today and there's not much there. And somebody contacted me and wants to write an article about where to shop local for Mother's Day and put me in
Right.
it. I have to feed the family. I would like to play World of Warcraft. I'm paying for a damn subscription I haven't used in a week. I would like to go for a hike in the park. There's what I like to do, what I have to do, but even if I can only do one,
Right.
looking and having it crossed off, it's like a star. It will have to do, and I trained myself to do that, and I put it into like 3 categories. It's like, okay, if I can only do 3 things in a day, one is something I need to do, one is something that is like a chore, and the other is it has to be a recreational something for me.
Right.
Even if it's playing my Disney emojis for a little while
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
or reading a book. Like something that's simply for me.
Right. And that makes sense. It does.
So yeah, doing that, and then it gives me permission to recognize how important it is for self-care. And I find that when I'm doing that, when I stick to that system, I get better. I feel better. I can actually get more done because once those 3 are out of the way, I'm like, if I have spoons left, I'm excited. But it also helped me get better at asking for help when I need it. And
Right.
so many of us in this world are not good at asking for help when we need it, and it's okay to ask for help.
That is true. And that's something that I think is very important when you are struggling. It's okay to ask for help. And I think we need to, as
And
much
it's
as we
more
want
than
to,
okay.
yeah,
Because it's like
and,
that acts of service joy. Like if you ask me for help and I help you, we're both getting something out of that.
especially as we're being activists and advocates for other people. Sometimes we forget that it's okay for those individuals to also ask for help from others.
Yeah.
Just because you're an advocate for someone else doesn't mean that you can't also be an advocate for yourself. I think
Absolutely.
that's important to understand. So at this point, I do believe it's if Brother Bowie will lead us in a word of prayer before our carrot and stick.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Okay,
So-
so who's taking what?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Who's taking what?
You're taking the carrot
Oh, okay.
because this is one you put up.
What's up, Doc?
So I love goodnewsnetwork.org, and I was looking at another story that keeps popping up in my feed, even though it was in January, about the little girl who gave all her birthday money to a homeless guy because he returned her grandmother's wallet. And I'm like, I know I've seen this before. And that's from January. So I found a more recent one at Good News Network that I thought was fantastic. And this is from just like last week. But this gentleman is using falconry. It saved him from his life of crime, and now he helps birds and at youth risk take flight. So Rodney Stotts was dealing drugs in his 20s in D.C. During the crack epidemic, and who would have thought he'd be interested in falconry? But he ended up taking up not only the hobby, but he has a nonprofit of his own now, helping kids in various institutions, schools, and they take care of his own falconry program and open their minds to what life can have to offer. So he's got a falconry license, and he helps rehab birds. Because he's got the license, he can capture juvenile birds of prey, falcons, hawks, eagles, ospreys, owls, raise them in captivity, and rehabilitate injured ones, like I mentioned, and then help, free them eventually. And that, he's taking this to other troubled youth and, helping them find a different path in life, something inspiring. This is something he found after ending up in jail for 5 months. So, yay.
That's absolutely wonderful. And falconry is such a wonderful art form, and it's so beautiful to see. And I love falcons, and seeing that whole thing, and to see it used in this way is very cool.
Yeah, we have a lot of birds of prey around my house, and it's always exciting to see them.
Yeah. So this week, my favorite group of fascists decided that they wanted to start a fascist caucus. It fell apart. I wrote this early, so but it seemed that Marjorie Taylor Greene and her cabal of crazies decided that they were going to start they were calling it America First Caucus, which, if anybody knows anything about the early 30s and everything else, that was very fascistic, connected to the Nazi movement in Germany and stuff like that. And their platform was they wanted to bring the Anglo-Saxon form of representation of government back to America. So I'm just like, how could you, it's like, why don't you just scream I'm a racist and just get it over with, and we can all move on, instead of hiding it. It's like, at this point, just say you're a racist. We can all go, no, really? And then we can all move on with our lives. Don't hide that you're a racist. Just say it, and then we can all be happy with ourselves. Because
it's like insane. I saw a wonderful op-ed on this, and it was like, Anglo-Saxon is what you say when whites only is too inclusive.
Yeah, I know. It's like, because that also includes like the Irish. It's like, we don't want the Irish to be involved. It's like, yeah. I mean, that's basically what they're. It's like, we don't want people from Spain to be involved. That's what I'm saying. It's like, it's absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, they definitely get a stick for even thinking this was. And when the Republicans go, that's not a good idea at all. The Republican leadership is like, no, we're not going to let you do that. That's when you have gone off the reservation, no pun intended.
Yeah.
So with that being said, next week speaking of that kind of stuff, we are going to start delving into, and this will probably be multiple different segments about it, but we're going to start looking into, I don't want to say cult membership, occultness, but we're going to start looking into how programming of language and how that's been used to obfuscate and manipulate certain segments of the population, and what we can do to help those individuals who have been put into that situation and everything else. Like I said, we may not be able to cover the helping part and everything. We may just discuss it and see, some of the problems and what we can recognize so that we can point it out and everything else. So that's going to be next week. In the meantime,
okay. So my assigned reading for this arc in our series is to go read George Lakoff's "Don't Think of an Elephant."
Right, and mine is to watch the Q series. I need to watch that documentary on HBO and do some reading, especially about the evangelicals and how that's been manipulated, especially in the last few, decades. So in the meantime, thank you for joining us at Heresy and Hearsay. I am Reverend Barney, and you can follow me on Twitter at Sethroth II, and you can find the show on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and any podcast, as well as our website. Just Google us. Don't forget our Patreon page, where $2 a month can keep this show going.
And I'm September. You can follow me on Twitch and Twitter at 9 of 12 and hear me on the Geek Grills podcast. Thanks for listening today, and bless your hearts. Stop the recording. Boop.